Welcome back to Breaking Biscuits, the Experience. And Mark, today we're going to do part two of program versus process living. Stay tuned. Well, Mark, last week we started the new year with a new kind of a new subject, kind of the same lane, but we were talking about program living versus process living, and we've had some really interesting discussions between you and I and some other folks on this subject. But just to kind of dive in, kind of where we left off last week, we were talking about, we were using Saul as an example in the Bible and we called it the system. And so when we talk about program living, we're talking about kind of living out of your mind, your head, opposed to your heart, and being inside of a system. So let's kind of jump into that first, if we can, like kind of trying to explain what we mean when we say the system. And I know you and I have different backgrounds, so we might bounce off each other what it means to us, because I think multiple systems that we could be living in, and we probably all have lived in at one time or another.
System living. There was an old concept that said the system creates managers, but the kingdom creates mentors and fathers. The system could be anything. We're not specifically talking about the church. We're talking about the system that we grew up in. And I always say you reproduce, reenact, revisit whatever what is either modeled to you or happened to you. But I just thought of a different concept while you were just now talking, that maybe we look at people who are successful and try to remodel our life after that. So if they're in the system, we're definitely going to be in the system.
Yeah. So definitely, when I think of the system, I think of anything that is kind of fear-based. We talk a lot about image management. So to me, the system has a lot of image management inside of it. The system, to me, always has authoritarian versus authenticity. So there's this need to be at the top versus the need to be authentic, and there's a big difference. And I'm not saying being at the top is wrong or not the right aspiration, but to trade it off to say I'd rather be at the top than be authentic. To me, that's the system. And being, another one is being like infallible, strong, perfect, opposed to just being honest. Like the system says you got to be the best, you got to be at the top of your game, you got to be the strongest, the fastest, the wealthiest, opposed to being honest. So what we're talking about is choosing, which one you want to live in, and are you trading one for the other? And it's not a matter of results. It's the matter of how you choose to live your life. If you choose to live it authentically, honestly, or do you choose to live in the system where you're just programmed to be a certain way to get that certain end result? And what I wanted to ask you, when we talk about Saul specifically, we'll use him in the Bible as an example. I mean, he lived in fear. He lived in management. He lived to be. He couldn't stand the idea of not being king. So, like he fit the mold of program living, and like how would you explain that from that perspective, from Saul's house perspective? And like, we'll use David and I think you could tie David into this, right? Because David lived a different way.
Right. Right. Well, first of all, Saul was picked to be the king. The people said, we want a king like everybody else. And it broke Samuel's heart because that wasn't God's design plan. But the Bible says they picked Saul because he was head and shoulders taller than everyone. And he was very handsome, so people chose him. The system, the way you know you're in the system is basically it's climb the ladder of success through performance. It's the only way you get to the top. I think that's true. I don't know. Or unless you're just really good friends with the person that's at the top. I don't know. But in the process living is living from your heart. I like what you said. One is living from your head and one is living from your heart. King David and King Saul were two completely different people. And King Saul lived in insecurity. And what I call, if you live in the system and you're a leader, you're going to have positional anxiety. You're going to always wonder who's out to get your spot.
Yeah.
But if you live in David's world from the heart, process living, you're going to want everybody to succeed more than you.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
I find it interesting, Mark. They both were kings.
Yeah.
So it didn't affect the outcome in the sense of like they both were chosen as kings. One was chosen because of the image. The other was chosen because his heart was after God. So one was chosen for authenticity and vulnerability, and that's how he lived his life. And the other was chosen because of outward appearance, probably was a great thinker. And, but at the end of the day, they were both kings. So I don't think we're saying today, if you choose to be authentic, you give up the possibility of what some people call success. We're just saying there's another, success isn't necessarily what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I heard somebody say this years ago, and I've always remembered it, is like, don't climb the ladder of success, and when you get to the top, realize it's leaning against the wrong building. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is you want to make sure that if you do meet these objectives and goals in life, they have purpose and value, and they're not meaningless and empty.
Well, it might, in my church, let's just say my world, I can only speak for my world. My world, a young man, I had to have, unfortunately in the church, like maybe it's in your world too, but name dropping gets you places. And so I felt like I had to have experiences so that in other words, when you're in, my heart was after God, but I was trained to be in the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, my heart was after God, but I knew I would only get speaking engagements if I got involved in the pseudo relationship thing. And it wasn't very authentic, and no one really, the way you know is who knows you. That's how you know which world you're living in.
Yeah.
Does anybody know you, the real you? And that's the litmus test of definition of process living versus the other one, the system, because that's it. That's really it. And it's funny because it's almost like God has laid out these principles of life. It's called the kingdom. If you follow the principles, your heart don't even have to be in it. You'll be successful.
Yeah.
But we can't measure success by what we have.
Right.
We have to measure it by who we are and who we've helped. You know what I mean? For example, David bought the threshing floor of Abinadab, I think it was his name, and he wanted to bring it back to the city of David because that's where it belonged. And he only had not even $1,000 to his name, but he gave him every penny he had to get it. But then when it came time to build the temple, God told him, you've been really a man of war. I want someone else to build it in peace. which tells me that the kingdom is transferred in peace. He gave I wish I had the figures, but it was almost $15 million he gave Solomon to start the temple. But there was years before that he only had like $250 to his name. So it's to your point, living from your heart doesn't mean you're going to be poor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's just drill into David, because he's in the story we're talking about today. He's the image of process living, of living from your heart and not being programmed. We know he was vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
We know that he was transparent.
Mm-hmm.
He was a relationship person. Like, we have these attributes that gives us signals and hints of how he lived his life. And I think the most interesting thing to me is that he also had a major failure in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the area of sexual sin. But yet, because this is the dynamic that I find incredibly interesting, Mark. So you've got Saul trying to manage his image, right? So if he had any failure, he's not going to let anybody know. Because in his mind, if I'm a failure, I lose everything. Because he gained popularity and position through image, so he would lose it through image. David, on the other hand, gained it through his heart in living this authentic, vulnerable life. And in his failure, he didn't fear being abandoned by God. He asked God not to leave him, but his heart was after God. And so he never left that position of vulnerability and authenticity, even in the midst of a huge failure. I mean, it wasn't just a sexual sin. I mean, he basically committed murder as well. And he had his best friend taken out to try to hide his shame, honestly, is what it was about. But yet, even in those moments of failure, he went back to what he knew, which is to open up his heart. He had remorse, and he lived out his life in an authentic, vulnerable way. And I find those two comparisons really, really interesting. I think they apply perfectly to what we're talking about: the system, program living, opposed to being in a process of learning, growing, authentic, and vulnerable. Like, how do you frame that with your words?
I just thought of another thing. Like, these conversations really bring me into remembrance. First of all, what I was just saying a while ago, is when you're in program living, you view relationships as a mean to an end. They're one of the rungs on the ladder. And we always want to connect to the people that they're connected to, so we can get to the people that we're connected to, so we can get to, you know what I mean? I don't know if you remember this or not. Samuel told Saul, right? Samuel told Saul, go into this place, and when I show up, we'll do a sacrifice, and God will meet us, and we'll see what he has to say next. And Saul got antsy because Samuel's late, because most prophets are late to everything. So you just have to live in that world. And so Saul did the sacrifice anyway, and it was out of the whole thing that God had designed. You know, he had selected certain people to do certain things in the kingdom, but he overstepped that because he was in this process living, and he needed an answer quick. And so he said, well, I ain't worried about Samuel. I'm just going to do it myself, right? So Samuel shows up and says, what's happening? I smelt burnt flesh. I don't hear the sheep. What happened? And he said, well, I did the sacrifice because you didn't come. which is crazy because years before that, the children of Israel made a golden calf because Moses didn't show up on time on their
Yeah.
performance on
Yeah.
yes, or what do we call it? Process. I mean,
Okay.
program on their program living. It didn't pan out, so they just made a decision to do something different. But here's something that is very unique that I forgot all about. Samuel told David, because you did this thing, because you couldn't wait, because you can't get out of your head, and everything's a performance to you, he said, God is going to take the kingdom from you this day. Of course, it didn't happen that day, but when God says this day, it could be any day.
Right.
But it will be someday.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand. And guess what Saul did? He grabbed the hem of Samuel's garment and tore it and said, Samuel, I beg you to go down the mountain with me and tell all the people me and you are still tight and God's still with us.
Oh my gosh. Image management to the core.
Using a spiritual concept.
Yeah. Wow.
Which says this program living will use spirituality as an avenue for image control.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I go to so-and-so church, but your heart ain't there. You could care less.
Yeah. Well,
You're there at the Methodist church, join the Lions Club to meet relationships that are going to get you to a means to an end.
Right. Right.
And you can lie to yourself if you want, but
so it's a motivation of the heart is really what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
It's what's the motivation behind it, because there's nothing wrong with community and connection.
No.
But
And you should look for them, right? I mean, that's how it's all built. But it's the heart. Do you really want a friendship with these people?
Yeah. Which kind of reminds me of what you told me earlier about David when he went into the cave. Can you share that with our audience? That's powerful. With his friends.
Well, David went to the cave of Adullam because Saul chased him down. The system is emphatically opposed. The head livers are emphatically opposed to heart livers because they're a threat to the system. People that live from the heart are a threat to the system. Like Saul just messed up on his sacrifice and the kingdom got taken away. David had his friend killed and took his wife, and God's like, well, you're still my man. So it tells me that when God says stuff over you, he don't take it back. So David goes to this cave of Adullam because it's the meaning of the cave is like a distressful, trying to find peace place. And when he came, 400 people showed up. And it said everyone that was in debt, everyone that was distressed, and everyone that was discouraged. And that's a crazy way to start a church right there. Everyone that was in debt, everyone that was distressed, and everyone that was discouraged went in that cave with him. We don't know how long he was in there. I'm sure somebody will help us out when. It doesn't matter. But the point is, when they came out, they became the mightiest men ever on the planet. And it's been I take a prophetic poetic license to say, this is what I see. This is how, after all my journey with God, this is what I saw that could have happened. And you can have your own, I love that about the Bible because you can have your own narrative. The reality is they became the mightiest man. Now, what you think happened in the cave is your thought. But my thought is, because I know who David is, because I've read the Psalms. Oh my God, he kept his heart, good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent. He always kept it open to God. Yeah. Always. No matter what, every Psalm, he'd say, everyone's out to get me. I'm afraid I made too many mistakes. but I love you, God. He always ended the psalm with, but you're my love, you're my defender. I know you'll come through. And so I think David went into the cave and he was incredibly vulnerable with them. Because I don't know any other strength in the world that changes people's lives. If going to a conference changed your life, I would be, I don't know, Jesus' cousin right now. Because I've been to them all. Or teaching.
Right.
Listening to podcasts, which you should. I'm gleaning. But at the end of the day, I still have to have my heart posture open to God and what He wants. I have men in my life, and I have people that we coach and people that I know that are terrified of vulnerability. And I always tell them, you know what I've learned in 42 years of just this kind of work is it's your only pathway out of shame. It's your own. And so I think, so if we could say this, the program living is performance through image management as to try to hide your shame.
Mm.
And then the other living, what do we call it?
Process.
Process living is learning to live in vulnerability with your heart, and you're unstoppable. Like when someone's vulnerable, what else are you going to say?
That's it. That's what I was thinking when you were talking. If I show myself, there's no fear of being rejected, because if I show you who I am and you love and accept me, there's no fear, there's nothing to hide, there's nothing hidden. I think the program living is, and I'm coming from the business community because that's my experience, is that it's the same trap is if I'm authentic or transparent, people really knew me, then it would hurt my career. It would hurt my chance for advancement. I would have customers that wouldn't come to me. And what I'm not saying is you go share all your stuff with everybody. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if you live a process, authentic, vulnerable life, you will open doors that you never knew could be opened, because it frees you, because you're freed from shame. You think different. You're different. Therefore, you impact different. You impact people on a different level. People will follow you because they see the authenticity. They will die for you. That's what David, that he had impact on those men. They came out of the cave and they're like, we'll do anything for you. We'll die for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We're going to make this vision happen. And as a leader, then I think it's like you're going to hit a ceiling in a program life. At some point, you're going to hit a limit. You know, and I always say it this way: is it works until it doesn't work anymore.
That's so good.
And I think it's like addiction. Addiction is great until it doesn't work anymore. It works great until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And this is no different. Program living is great because you're going to feel successful. You're going to get stuff. You're going to feel like you're advancing in life. But at some point, you're going to be dissatisfied with your own soul. The shame is going to win. The hiding, whatever it is you're hiding, and it could just be simple little things. It doesn't have to be some major event in your life, but those bottled up fears and emotions that you won't open up to with anybody is going to hold you back, and you're not going to be in a relationship like true. Nobody's going to know who you really are. Mark, is the bottom line. We always say fully known, fully loved. You're not going to be fully known, and it's hard to be fully loved if you're not fully known. Because when I'm really loved is when someone says, I know your failures and I love you in spite of it. That's fully loved.
Actually, those kind of people, like what we've experienced, will say, "Well, here's my failure."
Yeah.
I just wrote down here is, well, I wanted to ask you a question before we get there. How would you transition if you say, "Hey, man, I've had enough. Shame's got the better of me," and then also talk about what we're not saying, okay? Because a lot of times people hear what we're not saying, and what we're not saying is don't have good moral character, don't have a good presentation, don't, we're not saying that just because. Tell us what image management is and isn't, I guess. A healthy view.
A healthy. I mean, image management is the opposite of being authentic. And so, but there's nothing wrong with having a good image.
Yeah.
It's the difference is one is I'm managing my image to get an end result. The other is I'm being who I am. I'm being authentic, and I'm working to get a different result. But I'm not doing it through trying to be something I'm not, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And because authenticity is just being you. And I've learned in my vocation, my career, like when I'm me, I have much more success than when I try to be whatever my title is at the time. Like I learned just be me, and the other party that I'm negotiating with or trying to do business with, they will open up to that. They will be that. And so I'm not saying, I think that's the difference, Mark, to put it bluntly, is just one is you're managing your image to get something. It's a subtle difference, but when you live it, when you see it, like if you're living from your heart and you see somebody living through image management, it's real easy to spot.
Yeah.
I think you asked me kind of like, where do you start? I think it all starts with honesty. And the first person you got to be honest with is yourself. You got to ask yourself, here's a great place to start. I'm the logical thinker of the two here. So I'll do the logical start, right, and you can do the other.
Okay.
The logical start is to say, who really knows me? On my friend list, on my VIP on my phone, do they really know me? Do they know me like at my core?
Mm-hmm.
And how many people am I in community with that I can call the phone up, pick the phone up, call them and say, man, I'm struggling with this today. If you don't have somebody, or that list is one, you probably is a good place to be honest with yourself. It's like, I'm not really living a very vulnerable life. And here's another way. How many people are willing to tell you their stuff? Because to have trust, you got to be trustworthy. And to be trustworthy means somebody trusts you with their stuff. Mm-hmm. And if nobody trusts you with your stuff, that's probably a good place to start. Maybe I'm not being completely authentic, because I'm not authentic enough that someone would come to me and say, man, I need Mark, I need to talk. Mm-hmm. Our 911 buddies, as we call them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the answer to that is? How would you determine where you're at or where to start?
That's great. That's the greatest gift, when someone reciprocates your vulnerability. So what I believe is that you attract what you project. So if you're living in this performance mode, program living, you can do it very well. You'll attract the same people that want to be like that. But if you're living in this other world from the heart, here's the thing about humanity. People know who cares and who don't.
Yeah.
They know who's listening and who's not. And the hard part about vulnerability that people are scared of is there's a real chance that people will find out who the real you is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, once people know who you really are, there's no fear. I mean, you can put it on Facebook. I don't care. Because, yeah, that's who I am. And that's who I owned it. And that's what I went through. But that's not who I am, you know. I made mistakes, but that's not who I am. And I think that's what David represents to me.
Yeah.
And I think people are afraid, but they're afraid because they've never been here. And so my job is to coach them into this world and just trust me. It's not as scary as you think.
And you're not going to get rejected, Mark.
No. And this is the pathway through this safe community that we built. This is the pathway to step out of that one life into the next. And it's almost like if you live out of your head, people and relationships, all these things, which are great, are opportunities to help me. But when you live out of your heart, man, the reality of helping you is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think when you live out of your heart, the whole world opens to you from a possibility standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything can be accomplished because you're going to be motivated. People will follow, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be motivated to solve a need. You're going to help people, whether it's in business, whether it's in ministry, whether it's just in everyday life. When you live out of your heart wants to help people, and you're going to be more motivated than you've ever been before. That's my belief system.
But it's kind of foreign to us, Toby. We've been modeled this to men are weak if you share.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to leave this thought that has transformed my whole life. And it was simple. Jesus was crucified in public and he resurrected in private. And what we like to do is be crucified in private and be resurrected on Facebook in public.
That's good.
But that's part of the whole process.
Yeah.
And it's painful, but vulnerability, once you stress, and I know you can testify because you've really taught it to me, but once you step over the threshold of vulnerability, you look around and go, why was this such a big deal?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and the pathway is humility to get there. I mean, it's not, you think in your mind the whole world's going to end and you're going to be put on a castaway island. But the reality is everybody else respects you and they're like, wow, that took some courage. And I got my own stuff that I haven't ever showed or shared. And so I respect you for that. In fact, I probably love you a little bit more.
And I might be interested in following that path if it works out for you.
100%. So it's a door opener, not a door closer.
I would like to just tell people today that are listening, quit worrying about the 3 people on Facebook that'll judge you.
Yeah.
Just quit. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Why don't you look at the thousands that your life and what you've been through is going to help somebody else?
Yeah.
Because these 2 old guys right here, that's all we do every single week.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
And that's what we've been doing for years. And we're seeing really good results because people are finding courage in our weakness. It's like in my weakness, your strength is better.
Right. That's good.
It's just marvelous. And Toby, honestly, maybe we'll talk about this next week, but we have men that aren't vulnerable with their wives.
I'm so glad you said that because I think that's the next step. We didn't talk about relationships, and in my notes is why do relationships trigger program living? Because they do.
Yeah.
And you're in a relationship and you're living a program life. It doesn't create dysfunction. It reveals the head thinking program approach to relationships. So I think because we're out of time today, but I think it's going to be a really good place to jump in next week.
Would you wrap this up today? And I feel like we need to say it again, what we're not saying. But like, would you reinforce the need for good character? That doesn't necessarily mean you're in program living. That's just smart. That's common sense. That's what we're supposed to do. But can you just whatever's on your heart to clarify maybe the differences, but what we're not saying? Because I just think it's important, because people have spent, when you talk to someone who spent their whole life creating an image, now we're up here going, yeah, that ain't no good.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're saying.
No, I think we're not saying that image is bad. We're not saying that success is bad. We're not saying even financial success is bad, or success in ministry is bad. What we're saying is, if image is the means to get there, then when you get there, you're going to feel empty and unsatisfied. And you're going to see cracks in relationships, because that's not the healthy way to get there, is all we're saying. There's a better way.
Yeah.
The results, there's nothing wrong with the results in themselves. It's the method of how we get them. And in image management is it's a tough one, because we all want to be perceived in a positive light, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what we're really saying is trade that in for vulnerability with someone you trust, and you can still have the image. It's just not your motivation, Mark. I don't have to look and be a certain way. I get to relax and be me because I'm okay with me. I don't have to be like, look me up on the internet. You'll see I'm an executive in a company. I don't care about that image. In my place in life, I could care less. I'm more concerned about, am I comfortable with me every day when I get up? Am I living a peaceful, free life? And whatever success comes with that, based on my skills, hard work, opportunities, that's a whole nother discussion. We're not saying those things don't happen, but I'm not going to manage my image to obtain those things. And I'm not going to step on people. That's not my only goal in life.
And that leads to fear, though, right? That's what shame is. Shame is, I'm afraid if you knew who I really was, you'd reject me.
100%. Yeah, and I know a lot of successful business folks, and a lot of them live in fear of failure and in fear of being fully known, because the image. I want to say this is a good place to stop. Sometimes the image isn't what we create. It's projected on us because of our role. A pastor, a CEO. There's an image that's projected on them. Like a pastor's an easy one. He must be perfect. He must have it all together at home. So the image is projected on us that we have to carry. But to break that projection is the same way. You're authentic, you're transparent, and you're vulnerable. And then that image gets shattered, and the real you gets to come out and live the life that you were created to live.
Well, I'm very hopeful. The last month, I've met some incredible humans who are very authentic. They got it together, and their image is a certain way, but they're not management. They're just being authentic, and it shows. And it's a real inspiration to me, because they're incredibly successful. And at the same time, they're managing family life and work life, but they're still giving of themselves to people who really could benefit from their life. And they're young guys compared to me, but I'm very honored to be a part of it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I would remind everyone to like and subscribe and share these videos on whatever platform. And hopefully listen to this with an open heart and try not, like I always say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. Try not to hear what we're not saying, because that's going to be that's always the temptation when
Yeah, and I would add, Mark, there's like, we're the least two judgmental people on the earth. Like, I don't judge people for their success, their failures. So there's no judgment in what we're saying.
No.
We're just saying there's a piece of you that wants to be free, and we've been where you're at, and we're where we're at because of life experience. We just want you to get that sooner than we did.
Yes, 100%.
That's all this is about. That's the breaking of biscuits. That's what breaking biscuits is about.
It is. It is.
So break your biscuit and live a free life. You can try to figure out what that means. You and I know what that means.
As that one comedian, what's his name, Kevin Hart, said, "You're gonna figure it out today. You're gonna find out or whatever."
All right, well, we're way over time, but thanks for tuning in, and God bless you until next time. This is Breaking Biscuits, and we love you.
Yes, sir. We do.